Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you tonight about something far more dangerous than bad luck, far more destructive than a poor economy, and far more subtle than any obstacle life can throw at you. I want to talk about your attitudes. Because let me tell you something, I learned early life doesn't go wrong all at once. It goes wrong little by little, quietly, silently. And usually the damage begins inside long before anything shows up on the outside. See, most people think their lives fall apart because of the storms that come from the world, but I found out the real storms, the most serious storms, come from the inside. They come from what I call the attitude diseases, invisible illnesses of the mind and spirit, small at first, almost harmless at first. But if you let them grow, if you let them live in the dark corners of your thinking, they'll eat away at your future while you sleep. Now, the real tragedy of these diseases is that most people don't even know they have them. They think they're just being realistic or being careful or just the way I am. No. These are not personality traits. These are diseases. And tonight, my aim is simple: to show you what they look like, how to spot them, how to cure them, and how to make sure, absolutely sure, that you don't carry them into 2026. Because believe me, if you bring these diseases with you into another year, you'll repeat the same year you've already lived. Different calendar, same results. And that is not the plan. The plan is progress. The plan is growth. The plan is transformation, your transformation. But here's the good news. Once you understand these diseases, once you shine a light on them, once you examine them and decide, that's it, I've had enough, then the real change begins. The real climb begins. And that's what tonight is about. The climb. Because let me remind you of something very important. You cannot drift to the top of the mountain. Nobody ever drifts upward. Drifting is easy. Drifting is natural. Drifting requires no effort at all. But drifting always takes you downhill, financially, emotionally, spiritually, socially. The only way up is intentional effort, conscious discipline, and a good, strong look at the attitudes shaping your daily life. So, let's begin our work together. Tonight we're going to tackle the first silent thief, the first invisible enemy, the first attitude disease that destroys more potential than almost any other. Now, let's begin with the first disease, one of the quietest, sneakiest, most deceptive of them all, indifference, or what I like to call the shrug of the shoulder. The whatever attitude, the who cares spirit. The man or woman who sits in the back of the room, halfway alive, halfway interested, halfway committed, and unfortunately, halfway broke. You've met this person. Maybe you've even been this person. I know I have. The indifferent person doesn't get upset, doesn't get excited, doesn't get passionate. He just drifts. And that's the problem. Because drifting doesn't take you to good places. You can drift into disappointment, drift into heartache, drift into poor health, drift into financial trouble. But let me repeat what I told you earlier. You cannot drift to the top of the mountain. The top requires climbing, and climbing requires passion. I've had people tell me, well, Jim, I just don't see why I should get all worked up about anything. You ever hear that? Why get so excited? Why put your whole heart into it? I'll tell you why. Because the people who get worked up, who lean forward, who take life seriously, who get enthusiastic, they are the ones life hands opportunities to. They are the ones who get noticed. They are the ones who get invited. They are the ones who get promoted. And they are the ones who get rewarded. Here's one of the keys to the good life, and it's simple. Learn to put everything you've got into everything you do. If you sweep a floor, sweep it like a master. If you speak, speak with intention. If you work, work with vigor. If you show up fully, not halfway. Because here's the magic. Whatever you pour yourself into will quickly reveal one of two things. It will either open up into incredible opportunity, or it will show you that you ought to be doing something else. But indifference? It shows you nothing. It just keeps you drifting. Some people say, if I had a better job, I'd really pour it on. No, that's the delusion. You don't give more effort because you have a better job. You get a better job because you give more effort. The marketplace rewards the person of value, and value starts with attitude, not position. You see, indifference robs you of the very thing that makes life meaningful, the chance to become excellent, the chance to be proud of your work, the chance to build a reputation that speaks for you. And I promise you this, life is hard on the indecisive, but it's brutal on the indifferent. So, if you find yourself shrugging your shoulders, drifting through your days, feeling lukewarm about your goals, shake it off. Wake yourself up. Make today the day you say, no more casual attitude about my life. I'm pouring it on from now on. Because the day you stop drifting is the day you start climbing. Now that we've cured the first disease, let's talk about another one, maybe even more dangerous. Now let's move to the second disease, one that has stolen more opportunities than failure ever has. It's subtle, it's deceptive, and it disguises itself as being careful. I call it indecision, the disease of the man or woman who simply can't make up their mind. You've seen this person. Maybe you've been this person. They stand at the crossroads of life, and instead of picking a road, they build a house right in the middle. They're not going anywhere, but they're thinking about going everywhere. They say, I know I should start this, but what if it's not the right time? I know I should change jobs, but what if it goes wrong? I know I should take action, but what if I regret it? And before long, they've said, what if? So many times they've created a full-time job out of hesitation. I once met a man who told me, Jim, I've been sitting on the fence for years. I said, my friend, with that much time on the fence, you must have splinters in places we can't discuss in public. And we both laughed, but it's not funny when you realize how many dreams have died because someone refused to choose. Here's the truth I want you to write down. The greatest risk in life is not that you choose the wrong direction. The greatest risk is that you choose nothing at all. See, indecision is not a neutral position. It's not safety. It's not caution. It's a disease. And the worst part, the longer you wait, the heavier the weight becomes. Pretty soon, you don't just delay action, you fear action. You don't just pause decisions, you avoid decisions. And you tell yourself it's wisdom when really it's paralysis. Now here's the good news. The cure for indecision is simple. Make a decision. Any decision, pick a direction, and go with everything you've got. Someone says, but Jim, what if it's the wrong decision? Well, let me tell you something. If it's the wrong direction, you'll find out quicker. And that's valuable because at least now you're moving. At least now you're learning. At least now you're adjusting. Momentum creates clarity. Motion creates insight. Progress creates wisdom. A life filled with adventure is a life filled with decisions. And the wrong ones, they're not disasters. They're teachers. They give you experience. And experience gives you better judgment. And better judgment leads to better decisions. It's a cycle. But it only works if you start. So don't see how many decisions you can avoid. See how many you can engage in. That's where the excitement is. That's where confidence grows. That's where your future begins to open up like a well-lit road. Remember this. You can fix a bad decision, but you can't fix no decision. Choose, commit, adjust. That's the formula. Now that we've dealt with the paralysis of indecision, let's examine the disease that often hides underneath it. The one that whispers, you can't. Now, let's move to the third disease, one that eats away at the spirit like acid on metal. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't push, it pulls. It doesn't cripple your body, it cripples your future. I'm talking about doubt, especially self-doubt, one of the most destructive forces in the human mind. Doubt is sneaky. It shows up wearing reasonable clothing. It sounds intelligent. It tells you, be careful, don't try too hard, you might fail, you might not be enough, you might not deserve it. And if you listen too long, you start treating those whispers like truth. Doubt is the thief of dreams. It steals the promise of your future before you ever take the first step toward it. Now, there are many kinds of doubt. You can doubt the weather, you can doubt the economy, you can doubt the politicians, and sometimes with good reason. But the worst kind of doubt, the most damaging, the most paralyzing, is doubt in yourself. Imagine this. Life is asking you for boldness, and you're whispering back, I'm not sure. Opportunities come knocking, and you say, maybe tomorrow. Talent sits in your hands, and you say, I don't know if this is good enough. What a tragedy to be capable and yet unconvinced. I used to meet people who would say, Jim, do you really think I can do something great? And I'd say, of course you can. The question is, do you think you can? Because let me tell you something. It doesn't matter how many people believe in you. If you don't believe in yourself, Even 1,000 voices cheering you on can't help the man who's hanging on to one small internal whisper that says, I'm not good enough. Self-doubt creates hesitation. Hesitation creates small efforts. Small efforts create small results, and small results confirm the doubt that started the cycle. It becomes a loop, a dangerous one. But here's the good news. Doubt has a cure, and the cure is belief, not blind belief. Not empty affirmations. Earned belief built brick by brick through discipline, effort, and a little courage. Belief is a decision first and proof second. You decide to believe in yourself, and then you gather evidence in your own favor. You take small steps, you achieve small wins, you do what you said you'd do. And pretty soon, belief becomes your companion instead of doubt. One of the greatest turning points in my life came when my mentor said, Jim, the day you understand your own worth, that's the day you begin to climb. And he was right. Once you believe that you can change, you begin to change. Once you believe that you're capable, you become capable. Once you believe your life can be different, you take the actions that make it different. So let today be the day you tell doubt, that's enough. You've had your turn. Turn the coin over. Become a believer. Believe in your future. Believe in your responsibility. Believe in your ability. Believe in the value of your effort. Because the moment you start believing in yourself, life begins to rise to meet you. Now, once doubt has done its damage, it often invites its close cousin to take over. And this next one, this one is heavy. This one can bring the strongest person to their knees. Now let's talk about the next disease, one I know very well. I didn't study this one from books. I lived it for years. And the disease is worry. Worry is a devastating habit. Not concern. Concern is healthy. Not planning. Planning is smart. I'm talking about worry, the wild mental movie of everything that could go wrong, even if none of it is likely to happen. Worry is imagination gone wrong. Let me tell you how dangerous it is. Worry will take a strong man and bend him over. It will take a confident woman and drain her courage. It will take your energy, your sleep, your focus, and offer nothing in return. I used to be what you might call a super worrier. Not a super warrior. No. A super worrier. My family wished I had been a warrior. They said, Jim, you worry enough for 10 people. And I believed them. I rehearsed disasters that never came. I played out tragedies that never happened. And the truth is, most of the things I worried about either never occurred or weren't worth worrying about in the first place. See, worry pretends to be responsible. It says if you worry, you're preparing. No. Preparation is when you take action. Worry is when you do nothing but feel exhausted afterward. Worry causes emotional damage. It causes physical damage. It causes relationship damage. It can even cause financial damage. Because when you worry too much, you hesitate. And when you hesitate too long, opportunities pass by like ships you never boarded. One day I finally said, enough is enough. I'm giving up the worry habit. And let me tell you, that was one of the toughest years of my life. Because worry fights back. It follows you around. It whispers. But what if? What if? What if? You have to break the cycle. So how do you cure worry? 1, you replace fear with preparation. If something deserves worry, it deserves a plan. Plan it. Prepare for it. Then put worry aside. 2, you replace confusion with clarity. Write down what's bothering you. The moment you take the worry out of your mind and put it on paper, it loses half its power. 3, you replace imagination with discipline. Take action on the things you can control. Release the things you cannot. 4, you upgrade your mental diet. A worried mind is usually an overloaded mind. Too much news, too much comparison, too much chaos, too much noise. Stand guard at the door of your mind. Feed your thoughts with things that make you stronger. You see, you can live a life full of challenge, a life full of difficulty, a life full of responsibility. But you can live all of that without worry. And when you remove worry, you open space for courage. for clarity, for creativity, for opportunities that would have never shown up to a mind weighed down with fear. But now, after worry comes something even more subtle, even more polite, and even more dangerous. Because while worry suffocates your spirit, this next disease stops your life cold. Now let's move to the fifth disease, one that sounds smart, looks responsible, feels safe, and yet destroys more futures than risk ever has. This is the disease of overcaution, the timid approach to life. Now listen carefully. I'm not talking about being reckless. You can be too reckless and life will punish that. But you can also be too cautious and life will punish that too. Some people want everything lined up perfectly before they take a single step. They want guarantees before they try. They want the entire path illuminated before they take the first move. They say, well, what if this happens and what if that happens and what about that thing that could maybe possibly someday go wrong? I used to think that way. My caution used to drive me right up the wall. I had a whole vocabulary of fear. My favorite sentence was, yeah, but what if? What if it fails? What if I lose money? What if people laugh? What if it doesn't work out? And on top of that, I'd stack another. And if that happens, oh, look at the fix I'll be in. I could talk myself out of anything. Some people can talk themselves into opportunity. I could talk myself out of it. And I was good at it. Then one day my mentor said something that snapped me awake. He said, Jim, let me save you some time. It's all risky. I said, what do you mean it's all risky? He said, the minute you were born, it got risky. You'll never make it out of life alive. So stop asking for perfect safety. It doesn't exist. And that hit me so hard, I nearly fell out of my chair. It's all risky. Trying is risky. Not trying is risky. Investing is risky. Not investing is risky. Changing your life is risky. Staying the same is risky. Starting a business is risky. Working for someone else is risky. But here's the key. Some risks build your life, and some risks destroy it. Choose the ones that build. And that's what overcaution robs you of the ability to choose. Overcaution puts you in a corner, frozen in fear, waiting for perfect conditions that never arrive. Let me tell you what overcaution offers you. You say, Jim, I want safety and security. Okay, life has a version of that. We put you in a small corner. We cover you with a sheet. We bring you 3 meals a day. We protect you. We don't let anything happen to you. You might even live to be 100. And you say, well, yes, I'd live to be 100. But what a way to live. Exactly. Don't ask for security. Ask for adventure. It's better to live 30 years full of excitement than 100 years sitting safely in the corner. Better to try and fail than never try at all. Better to say I gave it everything than to say I never started. And here's the beautiful part. Once you stop letting overcaution rule your life, you don't become reckless, you become wise. You become bold. You become someone who tries, adjusts, learns, grows, and moves again. That's how you change your life. But now, if overcaution doesn't get you, this next disease almost certainly will. Because this next one isn't just a mindset. It's a lens through which some people see the entire world. Now, let's take a look at the sixth disease, one that spreads faster than a rumor, sticks longer than a bad habit, and can drain the joy out of even the best opportunities. I'm talking about pessimism, the deadly habit of always looking on the bad side, the problem side, the difficulty side. You've met these people. Put them in front of a sunset and they'll say, would have been nicer without the clouds. Show them a new opportunity and they'll tell you 10 reasons why it probably won't work. Invite them to think big and they'll say, well, let's not get carried away. Their whole life is one long, uninterrupted complaint about what's wrong, what's missing, and what might go wrong next week. And let me tell you what an ugly way to live. The pessimist doesn't search for virtue, he searches for faults. He doesn't look for possibilities, he hunts for problems. He doesn't say, here's what's right. He says, let me show you what's wrong. And when he finds what's wrong, he's delighted. That's the tragedy. He celebrates his own limitations. Let me put it in a Jim Rohn way. The pessimist looks through the window and doesn't see the sunset, he sees the smudges on the glass. Same window, same view, different eyes. Now the question is, why do two people see the same situation so differently? One sees promise, the other sees pain. One sees a challenge, the other sees defeat. One sees the path, the other sees the potholes. Here's the answer. Our lives are shaped not by how things are, but by how we think things are. Your perspective creates your reality. Now let me take you a little deeper. My mentor used to tell me, Jim, the mind is like a factory. Whatever you think about all day long pours ingredients into that factory. Those ingredients become the fabric of your life. Your emotions, your decisions, your habits, your future. If you fill your mental factory with worry, fear, gossip, bad news, complaints, criticism, guess what your life will be made of? Nothing but ashes, regret, and missed opportunities. You can't bake a cake with cement. You can't build a great life with trashy thoughts. I remember my early years. I used to start the morning by loading up on the daily newspaper. And not the good parts. No, I'd load up on wars, riots, tragedies, murders, scandals. I'd even read the back page where the worst stories hide. Then I'd take all that poison, pour it into my mental factory, and start the day. And then I wondered why I walked around depressed, broke, and discouraged. They called me economic peewee. No wonder. See, it wasn't my job. It wasn't my education. It wasn't my upbringing. It was my thinking. Poor thinking habits keep most people poor, not poor working habits. Most people work hard, but they don't think hard. That's why pessimism is such a deadly disease. It attacks your thinking. It blinds your hope. It shuts down your creativity. It destroys your initiative. And worst of all, it makes you believe that your best days are behind you. But here's the cure. Better thinking habits. Better mental ingredients. Better input. Better perspective. Start looking for what's good. Start hunting for opportunity. Start noticing progress instead of setbacks. Start feeding your mind ideas, books, mentors, and experiences that make you stronger. Because the moment you see life differently, life becomes different. Now, we've battled 6 difficult diseases so far. But the last one, this one is the killer. This one can erase an entire future if you give it just a little room. This one doesn't just weaken your financial future, it can destroy it outright. Now we come to the final disease, and believe me, if the first 6 don't get you, this one surely will. This one is deadly. This one is subtle. This one can sneak into your life disguised as venting, expressing yourself, or just being honest. But don't let the costume fool you. The 7th disease is complaining, that slow, silent drain on your energy, your spirit, your influence, and your future. Complaining is the vocabulary of the defeated. It's the language of people who have surrendered control of their lives. It is, as I like to call it, economic cancer of the bone. Once it sets in, if you don't stop it, it will eat everything. Some people spend 5 minutes complaining and waste 5 minutes. But the real danger is this. After 5 minutes, you may have just begun a habit that will grow into a lifetime of regret. Because complaining doesn't just waste time, it reshapes your mindset. You start to see problems where there are none. You start to exaggerate obstacles. You start to believe you're powerless. And a powerless person is dangerous because they stop trying. Here's the tragedy. Complainers think they're describing life, but in reality, they're destroying life. You'll never find a complainer with a great future. You'll never find a complainer who is a leader. You'll never find a complainer who inspires others. Why? Because complaining pushes opportunity away. Leaders avoid complainers. Winners avoid complainers. Problem solvers avoid complainers. Even good ideas avoid complainers. They know they won't survive the conversation. I've watched this happen. Some people complain so much, life eventually says, well, if you don't like what you have, I'll take it away. And soon enough, they're left in a desert, choking on the dust of their own dissatisfaction. See, life responds to your attitude whether you like it or not. If you complain about everything, life will give you more to complain about. If you appreciate what you have, life will give you more to appreciate. Now, I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you because I've lived it, I've seen it, and I learned how to cure it. So here's the cure for complaining. 1. The 24-hour no complaint challenge. Go 1 full day without a single complaint, not even a tiny one. No blaming, no whining, no criticizing. You'll be amazed how often the temptation shows up to replace complaints with requests. Don't say, this is terrible. Say, here's how we can improve it. Leaders don't complain, they adjust. 3, replace blame with responsibility. If something needs fixing, fix it. If something needs improving, improve it. If something needs understanding, understand it. 4, replace negativity with gratitude. You can't complain and be grateful at the same time. The mind won't allow it. Complaining is expensive. It costs you energy. It costs you friendships. It costs you opportunities. And worst of all, it costs you your future. But responsibility, gratitude, solutions, those things build fortunes. They build character. They build destiny. So if you've been complaining, stop. Not next week. Not next month. Stop tonight. The future remembers the problem solver, not the complainer. Now that we've cured all 7 diseases, it's time for the most important part of this entire journey, the cure, the commitment, and the challenge that will transform your coming year. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of our journey together. We've taken a long, honest look at 7 attitude diseases, 7 silent thieves that can steal your future right out from under you if you don't catch them early. And the good news is, the moment you recognize these diseases, you can cure them. You don't need permission. You don't need a special certificate. All you need is awareness and a decision. Let's recap our lesson tonight, not to repeat it, but to seal it. Indifference cured by engagement. Indecision cured by bold choices. Doubt cured by belief and action. Worry cured by discipline and preparation. Overcaution cured by courage and risk. Pessimism cured by better thinking habits. Complaining cured by responsibility and gratitude. These 7 diseases destroy your future from the inside. And if you take them with you into 2026, then 2026 will look exactly like 2025. And 2025 looked too much like 2024. And before you know it, you've lived 1 year 10 times. But if you cure these diseases, if you take back control of your attitude, you don't just improve your year, you change your entire destiny. Your life doesn't turn around when the calendar changes. Your life turns around when you change. My mentor said, Jim, the promise of the future is always greater than the mistakes of the past. And I pass that on to you tonight. 2026 does not need to be a repeat. It can be your turning point, your rise, your renewal, your climb. But it starts with a commitment, a real one, not a wish, not a hope, not a someday. Let me give you a simple plan, one that can rebuild your mind, your attitude, your habits, and your future. For the next 7 days, focus on 1 disease per day. Study it, catch it, cure it. By the end of the week, you'll feel lighter. For the next 7 weeks, practice the opposite attitude every single day. Replace bad habits with good ones until the cures become automatic. For the next 7 months, track your climb, write your progress. Build a life worth remembering. Make 2026 the year you stand tall and say, this is where everything changed. Remember this, your future is not determined by the year. Your future is determined by your attitude right now. So take these lessons with you. Guard your mind, pour it on. Choose boldly, believe deeply, risk wisely, think positively, and never, never complain your way out of a great future. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Now go and build a life that makes you proud.